They told you to fit in, follow the rules, and wait your turn. But what if conformity was never the path to meaning, only creation is? You felt it. That quiet ache behind your ribs when you nod along in a meeting you don't believe in. That hollow echo in your chest when you scroll through feeds of lives that look perfect but feel borrowed. You were taught that safety lies in sameness, that if you just mirror what others do, you'll be accepted, secure, successful. But deep down, you know, imitation is not existence. It's camouflage. And no soul thrives in hiding. This isn't about rebellion for its own sake. Stoicism doesn't glorify chaos. It honors clarity. And clarity reveals a simple truth: the crowd moves as one body because it has no mind of its own. It follows noise, not North Stars. It mistakes volume for virtue. But you carry something quieter. A whisper older than trends, louder than algorithms. The impulse to shape, to build, to leave something true behind. Let me tell you a story you might recognize as your own. Not mine, but yours. Because this isn't about me. It's about the moment you realized you'd been living someone else's script. Maybe it was after your third promotion, when you stood in your sleek Dubai office overlooking the Burj Khalifa, and asked, "Is this all?" Or maybe it was quieter, a Sunday morning, coffee cooling in your hand, scrolling through photos of people doing things you thought you wanted, feeling nothing but distance. The Stoics knew this tension well. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, the ultimate crowd leader, and yet he wrote in his private journal, Meditations, not to command others, but to remind himself, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. He didn't seek applause. He sought alignment. Between action and principle. Between outer life and inner truth. And that alignment only comes when you stop copying and start creating, from your own center. Creation isn't reserved for artists or inventors. It's the act of bringing forth what only you can offer. A kind word shaped by your history. A boundary drawn from your values. A business built on integrity, not imitation. Even silence, when chosen deliberately, is creation. It carves space where noise once ruled. But here's where most stumble. They confuse creation with perfection. They wait until they're ready, until they have more followers, more confidence, more permission. But the Stoics would call that procrastinatio animi, delay of the soul. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, "While we are postponing, life speeds by." Creation begins not when conditions are ideal, but when you accept that your offering will be imperfect, unfinished, human, and that's precisely why it matters. Think of the date palm in the desert. It doesn't wait for rain to decide whether to grow. It sends roots deep into dry earth, trusting that somewhere, water exists. Your creative impulse is that root. It doesn't need external validation to reach. It needs only your willingness to dig. Now, let's speak plainly about the cost of conformity. It doesn't just steal your voice, it steals your time. And time, as Marcus Aurelius reminds us, is the one thing you cannot reclaim. Every hour spent mimicking, masking, or muting yourself is an hour not spent building what only you can build. The crowd offers comfort, yes, but it's the comfort of anesthesia. It numbs you to your own longing. And that longing? It's not vanity. It's vocation. Not in the religious sense, but in the original Latin, vocare, to call. You are being called, not to stand out for attention, but to stand firm in your truth so that your work, your presence, your choices become a quiet beacon for others lost in the fog of sameness. I know what you're thinking, but what if I fail? Ah! There it is, the fear disguised as practicality. But listen closely, failure is not the opposite of creation. Conformity is. To create is to risk. To conform is to surrender before the battle begins. And the Stoics didn't fear risk, they feared regret. Epictetus, born a slave, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters." Your response, to create despite uncertainty, is your freedom. Consider this: every great structure in human history began as a sketch in someone's mind that defied convention. The aqueducts of Rome weren't built because engineers followed precedent, they reimagined gravity. The poetry of Rumi wasn't written to please crowds, it poured from a heart too full to stay silent. Your contribution may not be monumental in scale, but it must be authentic in source. Here's a practice you can begin today. Not tomorrow. Today. Find 5 minutes of stillness. Breathe. Then ask yourself, what am I pretending not to know? That question cuts through noise. Maybe you know you should leave that job. Maybe you know you've been avoiding a conversation that needs to happen. Maybe you know you've been writing songs in your head for years but never recorded one note. That knowing, that's your creative compass. Don't wait for inspiration. Create to invite it. Write one sentence. Sketch one line. Send one honest message. Action precedes clarity, not the other way around. The Stoics practiced ascesis, discipline through doing. Not waiting. Doing. Even when trembling. Especially when trembling. And remember, creation is not a performance. It's a practice. Like tending a garden. Some days you plant. Some days you prune. Some days you simply sit and watch. But you show up. Not for likes. Not for legacy. But because the act itself aligns you with your nature. And your nature, dear friend, is not to follow, but to form. To shape. To bring forth. You might worry, what if no one understands? Good. If everyone understands, you're likely repeating. True creation often arrives before its time. Like seeds carried by wind to soil not yet ready. But that doesn't diminish their worth. It confirms their necessity. Your work isn't for everyone. It's for the few who need it, and for you, who must make it to remain whole. Let's return to that moment I mentioned earlier, the one you've lived. When you looked around and realized you'd outsourced your judgment to the crowd. That moment wasn't weakness. It was awakening. The first crack in the shell. And from cracks, light enters. From cracks, new forms emerge. Marcus Aurelius wrote during plague, war, and betrayal. Yet he never blamed the world for his suffering. He asked, what is this for? How can this pain, this confusion, this loneliness become material for my growth? Your current discomfort, the friction of not fitting in, is not a sign you're failing. It's proof you're evolving beyond the mold. Now, a warning, the crowd will try to pull you back. Not with malice, but with habit. Friends will say, why change now? Algorithms will feed you content that reinforces your old identity. Your own mind will whisper, just go back. It's easier. But easier is not the same as truer. And truth is the only ground where lasting peace grows. So how do you resist without resentment? By creating so consistently, so quietly, that your alternative becomes undeniable. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just present. Like a mountain. The crowd may rush past, but the mountain remains, shaping weather, sheltering life, standing in its own shape. Be the mountain. This week, try this: identify one area where you've been conforming out of fear. Maybe it's your career path, your relationship patterns, your daily routine. Then ask, if I were creating my life from scratch today, ignoring all expectations, what would I choose? Don't act on everything at once. Choose one small act of creation. One email. One boundary. One page written. One no spoken gently. That's your foothold. And when doubt returns, and it will, remember this: the crowd has never built anything that lasted. Empires built on consensus crumble. Art made for mass appeal fades. But the quiet creations, the ones born of solitude and sincerity, endure. Because they carry a spark of the real. You were never meant to follow the crowd. Not because you're better than others, but because you're different. And difference, when offered with integrity, is a gift to the whole. The ecosystem needs diversity to thrive. So does humanity. Your unique perspective, your odd rhythm, your unorthodox dream, they're not flaws. They're features. Necessary ones. Creation is how you repay the gift of your life. Not by hoarding it in safety, but by shaping it into something that serves, even in small ways. A meal cooked with care. A lesson taught with patience. A design that solves a real problem. These are acts of love, and love is the highest form of creation. I'll leave you with this. Years from now, when you look back, you won't regret the risks you took to create. You'll regret the moments you chose silence over song, safety over truth, the crowd over your calling. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for certainty. Begin where you are. Use what you have. Create what only you can. The world doesn't need more echoes. It needs your voice, raw, real, and resonant. Not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. And in giving it, you give others permission to find theirs. So go. Shape your corner of the world. Not to impress. Not to escape. But to express what only you carry within. If any of these ideas resonated, I've linked the books in the description. You were never meant to follow the crowd. You were meant to create.